Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Resident Evil 8 Village. This is the second Resident Evil game that I've played, the first one being Resident Evil 7, which is a good thing because this is a direct sequel to that one. I'm not sure if that is how most Resident Evil games typically are. From my understanding, Resident Evil 7 was the first introduction of our main character, Ethan Winters. This is picking up 3 years after the events of Resident Evil 7. I do feel like that there are a lot of nods and Easter eggs about other Resident Evil games, but they all flew over my head. What I do know is this. In Resident Evil 7, Ethan rescues his wife. At the beginning of this game, they have now had a baby, and the beginning of the game kind of starts off with a bang where these big military guys shoot Ethan's wife and kidnap his daughter. They also knock Ethan out. Ethan then wakes up due to a vehicle wreck because he was being transported in a vehicle apparently, and Ethan finds himself in this creepy village full of these werewolves and other medieval-esque type of enemies. Ethan quickly finds out that his daughter, Rose, is actually in the big castle that is looming over the village, and so he sets off to rescue his daughter. As far as Ethan himself, he's equally an incompetent person, but also a powerhouse. He is constantly doing silly decisions and reacting very slowly in a way that I would not expect from a video game protagonist. But he's also has this ability to just like bounce back, and he is incredibly motivated to rescue his daughter to the point where he's willing to go through things like mutilation and losing your fingers and getting your hand chopped off. He has a lot of injuries with his hands, but it's funny because there's this liquid and you can just basically like pour it on your wounds and you automatically heal those wounds apparently. This is kind of explained later in the game, but I don't want to spoil anything. It is just kind of funny how often and frequently Ethan is getting hurt. But you got to admire his dedication to rescuing his daughter. If you're not familiar with the series, Resident Evil is a survival first-person shooter. At least the 7th and 8th one. I know that not all of them are first-person shooters, but they all always tend to rely on the survival aspect of this horror genre where you are given limited amount of resources and you are expected to navigate through these spooky areas while managing those resources. In the past, when I have played video games, I used to be very conservative with my resources to the point where I'm saving all of my elixirs and revival items and everything until the very last boss, because you never know when you're going to need these items. I have since bounced back the other way where I use all powerful items and spells and whatever is available to me pretty much like immediately after I get them. That is not a good habit to have for this game because I was frequently out of ammo. I do feel like sometimes the game will throw you a bone if you're pretty liberal with your resources because you'll find a bunch of these boxes and drawers and they'll give you ammo to the point where like you tend to always have at least your basic handgun ammo. But as far as like my shotgun ammo that I would use a lot and my sniper rifle, I was usually out of that ammo. There's some very simple crafting in this game where if you pick up like metal scraps and some gunpowder, you are able to craft some ammo, but usually this is maybe like 4 or 5 shots, and you are able to buy your ammo from a vendor as well, but the ammo, it goes by pretty quick. They don't want to stock you up. You do have to be pretty smart with your ammo, especially for the guns that you like to use. And this is very purposefully done because I feel like if you're too liberal with your ammo, if they gave you too much ammo to use, the combat in this game would be super easy because most of the enemies aren't going to be very quick. Most of the enemies are going to be zombies or like these lycans, and they just kind of slowly lumber towards you as you're firing shots at them. Most of them aren't going to be really firing projectiles back at you or anything like that. So typically when you're going to get hit by these enemies is if you are outnumbered, if there's like 5 of these enemies lumbering towards you and you can't take them all before they get to you, or you run out of ammo. They do give you a melee weapon, just like a little knife. It really doesn't do that much damage though, and I would not rely on the knife. So there's definitely some incentivization to explore all the nooks and crannies and try to gather up as many resources as you possibly can. I really like the map in this game. I feel like the map is very detailed, and they will represent different sections of the map in either red or blue. Red being there's still some stuff like in this little house that you haven't gathered, or this room, or if it's blue, that means that you've gotten everything and you can leave with confidence knowing that you're not missing out on anything. Initially, I thought that the whole game would take place in this giant spooky castle, but that actually isn't the case. Maybe like a fourth of the game is in the castle, but you're actually going to be spending a lot of the time in the village around the castle as well, hence the game's name. But then you're going to be exploring into like spooky woods or factories and other areas, so it does mix up the scenery. It's not all in this one castle. There's a lot of Myst-like elements in this game where you're going to be doing a lot of puzzles, you're going to be finding certain items or keys that allow you to access new areas. Sometimes you will have to interact with certain items in order to activate their powers, like rotate them around, move them around until you find like a switch on the bottom, or like if you have a book, you're going to be rotating the book around before you can open it up and actually read the contents inside. And so while this game does a good job, I feel, of changing up the environments that you'll be playing through, I feel like they also change up the gameplay a lot as well. So sometimes you're going to be exploring this more open area, trying to get all the resources, shooting at enemies that are slowly lumbering towards you, interacting with puzzles, finding all the hidden items around. But other times it's more like a channeled area where you are navigating through hallways. Sometimes it has you do more of like an escape room type of situation where there's no combat, but you're interacting with the items and trying to find like the codes in order to open up the door. Other times they're just tossing a ton of enemies at you and you're not doing any puzzles, you're just trying to survive these hordes of enemies. I felt like the bosses in all of these different areas were very unique as well. You can obviously tell like what they're all about, and they all have a unique boss fight as you're trying to take them all down. You also like find out what their origins are and why they're in this place, how they came to be the way that they are. And you're going to be doing a lot of that lore building as you are going through, reading notes and books and looking at pictures, and you're just trying to like piece together what happened to this village, where your daughter Rose might be. It never became like too much reading though, you know? Like some games like to really have you read all of these big long books as you're trying to figure out what's going on. I felt like this game did a really good job balancing the gameplay and the world building. There are some RPG-esque elements, like you do have the ability to upgrade your guns and upgrade Ethan himself. This is mostly done through a mysterious merchant who appears sporadically like all throughout the game, named the Duke, and this is where you'll be doing a lot of your currency spending and selling, because whenever you defeat like an enemy, they'll drop currency. If you defeat a really strong enemy, then they will drop this item that you can sell for a ton of money, or at least it feels like a ton of money, but then you realize how expensive everything is, and then you realize that you're probably not going to be upgrading all of your guns. That was one of the frustrating things, is that when I first got my pistol, like the very first gun that Ethan gets, I upgraded it and I spent a lot of currency in it only to get a second pistol, which base stats are now better than the first pistol that you got. And so I was frustrated that I spent all this currency upgrading my pistol when I was going to get a new one as well. This was the same as the shotgun. You get a shotgun, you spend a ton of currency upgrading it, and then you just get a second shotgun that is just inherently better. You also can buy like mods for your guns as well. Now actually the gun that I ended up using the most was the sniper rifle, and you'd think that when you're playing like a first-person survival shooter with more enclosed spaces, you're probably not going to be using the sniper rifle that often, but if you're really good at landing those headshots, I found that the sniper rifle was invaluable. Plus, you could craft more. I think you could craft 4 bullets of sniper rifle compared to the 3 bullets of the shotgun, and so usually when I play games like this, I do stick to the shotgun, but this game I found myself actually utilizing the sniper rifle a lot more and spending most of my currency upgrading that sniper rifle. You can also upgrade Ethan. Mostly you're just upgrading his health. You're doing this by means of meat, and so if you come across like chickens around the village or pork or fish, fish, you're going to want to shoot them, gather up their meat, and then you can trade the meat with the Duke and he'll like cook you a meal to increase your overall health. He also has the ability to increase your damage that you're reducing when you're blocking. I always forgot to block in this game because I never really got to the point where I was up close and personal to an enemy to the point where they could actually like attack me. But I probably should have gotten in the habit of learning how to block. I really don't think that this game is too difficult combat-wise. I think most of the difficulty in this game comes from learning how to manage your resources. I never really got too many game overs, maybe 3 or 4 times due to some kind of gimmick, but for the most part, the combat isn't the thing that killed me. That being said, there are some unkillable enemies that are more like chase kind of scenes where they'll just wander around and you have no current way of taking them down, and so you basically just have to like run to your next destination. Thankfully, it's not like a FromSoft game where the combat goes even though you pause the game. So you can like pause the game whenever you want, craft new ammo or healing potions, for lack of a better word, or pull up your map to see exactly where you want to run next. There are also like certain safe zones where these wandering enemies can't reach you. Usually they're where the Duke is, so you can save next to him and do some more shopping. I think the game does a good job making you feel powerless without you actually always being powerless. And so when you do get those surges of power where you can finally take down that invulnerable enemy who is chasing you down, it feels pretty good. And I think that really lends itself to the spookiness of the game, the horror of the game. I like the horror genre as a whole, but I do not like jump scares. And this game does rely on a couple jump scares, but I also think that it does a good job of just being like overall creepy and setting the tone of the area. Like whenever you go to a new area, you see these creepy set pieces. There's a lot of gory horror elements as well, but I think the main reason that I do like the horror genre as a whole is its creepy story, its creepy mystery, and this game delivers on that. It's not that long of a game. I do feel like I did the majority of the things available. I would try to make all of the areas on the map blue instead of red. I also got all of these orbs. Basically, if you find these orbs, you can place them into this puzzle where you have to like roll a ball around and try to get it into the area without falling off the little puzzle. It's a little difficult to explain, but if you do successfully roll this ball in its designated area, then you'll get an item that you can sell for a ton of money. And I did get all of those orbs in the game. Still though, this game only took me about 8-ish hours. I imagine that if I had gotten 100%, it might have taken me maybe like 10 to 11 hours, but this game has a high replayability value to it. I think through successive runs, you can really master the gameplay, and if you knew exactly like where to go to grab what item and what to do, I feel like speedrunners would have a lot of fun with this game as well. It really is like one of those games that you can take your time and explore all the nooks and crannies, or you can just kind of like speed through and get exactly what you need to do if you know where to go. I had a lot of fun playing it. I did like the more like supernatural kind of element to this horror genre, but I think I might like the setting of Resident Evil 7 better because it feels more realistic, I guess. If you take away that supernatural element, the supernatural element kind of takes away the horror of it, in my opinion, compared to something like in Resident Evil 7 where you're more in this like creepy haunted swamp area where this possessed family is trying to kill you. I like both of these settings just for different reasons, I guess. Overall, I think I'm going to give this game a 4 out of 5. I had a really fun time playing it, and when Resident Evil 9 eventually does come out, I think I will pick it up. I'm also curious about playing some of its predecessors as well, just because I'm not sure exactly like how linked all of these games are. They seem like the type of games that you could pick up and play without knowing all of the backstory, but your experience will definitely be elevated if you do play through all of the Resident Evil games. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Resident Evil 8 Village, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!